one doctor noticed something everyone else ignored, and it cost thousands of lives before anyone listened. Today we will listen to the story of Ignaz Semmelweis and how handwashing became one of the greatest discoveries in medical history. Welcome back to another story with English Story Beats. Glowing Star. In 1840s Vienna, inside a great hospital, something terrible was happening. Women were dying. They came to the hospital to give birth to their babies. It should have been a moment of joy. But many never left. They died in great pain, just days after giving birth. The doctors called it childbed fever. It killed 1 in every 10 women, sometimes more. In some wards, it killed 1 in 3. The mothers knew. Pregnant women in Vienna were terrified of the hospital. They begged to give birth in the street rather than go inside. The doctors did not understand why. They tried different treatments. Nothing worked. The dying continued. Then a young Hungarian doctor arrived. His name was Ignaz Semmelweis. He was curious, serious, and troubled by the deaths. He asked questions that no one else was asking. He noticed something strange. At the hospital, there were 2 maternity wards. Ward 1, run by doctors and medical students. Ward 2, run by midwives. The death rate in Ward 1 was far higher than in Ward 2. Why? He wrote the numbers down. He studied them. He compared them. What was different about the 2 wards? Then in 1847, his close friend, a doctor named Jacob Kolechka, died. He had been doing an autopsy, examining a dead body, when a student accidentally cut his finger with a scalpel. Within days, Jacob was dead. His symptoms were identical to childbed fever. Semmelweis stared at this fact for a long time. What if the deaths were connected? What if the doctors were carrying something, some kind of invisible poison, from the autopsy room to the mothers? In the 1840s, there were no microscopes powerful enough to see bacteria. No one knew about germs. Germ theory did not exist yet. But Semmelweis did not need to know about germs to see the pattern. Doctors in Ward 1 went directly from dissecting dead bodies to delivering babies. They washed their hands with simple soap. They thought they were clean. But they were not. The midwives in Ward 2 did not perform autopsies. They only worked with living patients. That was the difference. Semmelweis introduced a new rule in Ward 1. Every doctor, every student, must wash their hands with a solution of chlorinated lime, a powerful disinfectant, before examining any patient. The results were immediate. Dramatic. The death rate in Ward 1 dropped from nearly 10% to less than 2%. In some months, 0 mothers dying of childbed fever. Semmelweis had the proof. He had the numbers. He had the data. He had the lives saved. He was certain. He presented his findings to his colleagues. He explained everything. And they laughed at him. They were offended. How dare he suggest that doctors, educated, respected, gentlemen of science, had unclean hands? That was impossible. That was an insult. The leading doctors of Vienna rejected his findings completely. One famous professor wrote, "Only a fool or a madman would suggest such a thing." Semmelweis was devastated. He tried again. He wrote papers. He gave lectures. He showed his numbers to anyone who would listen. But the medical establishment closed its doors to him. He lost his position in Vienna. He moved to Budapest and continued his work there, with the same results. But still, the world would not listen. He watched as mothers continued to die in other hospitals that refused to adopt his method. He wrote angry letters. He became desperate. He called doctors murderers, not because they meant harm, but because they refused to change. Years passed. His mental health deteriorated. In 1865, Ignaz Semmelweis was committed to a mental asylum. He died just 14 days after arriving. He was 47 years old. The exact cause of his death is not certain. But some historians believe he died of the very infection he had spent his life fighting. A wound on his hand became infected. He died of sepsis, blood poisoning. The same invisible enemy he had tried to stop. It was a cruel and tragic end to a heroic life. And for years after his death, the medical world moved on as if he had never existed. But then, something changed. A few years later, a French scientist named Louis Pasteur proved that germs, tiny invisible living things, cause disease. Then a British surgeon named Joseph Lister used this knowledge to change surgery. He introduced antiseptic methods, keeping wounds clean to prevent infection. He changed medicine. He received the fame. He received the recognition. But where did his ideas come from? They came from the evidence that Semmelweis had already found. The pattern that Semmelweis had already proved. The numbers that Semmelweis had already published. The world had just refused to see them, until another man, at another time, said the same thing. Today, Ignaz Semmelweis is recognized as the father of hand hygiene. Every hospital in the world has hand sanitizer on the walls. Every doctor washes their hands before treating a patient. Every nurse, every surgeon, every medical worker knows the rule that Semmelweis fought for. And that simple rule, wash your hands, saves millions of lives every year. Some estimates say it prevents more deaths than almost any other single medical practice. Semmelweis never received a prize. He died alone, in an asylum, rejected by his peers. But his idea lived. His truth lived. His evidence lived. Because truth does not die with the person who discovered it. It waits. It waits until the world is ready. And when the world finally accepts it, the lives saved cannot be counted. Ignaz Semmelweis was a man who was too early. Too right for his own time. But his story teaches us something essential. When you see something true, even if no one believes you, keep the record. Keep the data. Keep the numbers. Keep saying what you know. Because one day, the evidence speaks for itself. And on that day, even in death, you save the world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories and English learning videos. And let us know in the comments what type of story you want to hear next.